Get out. And don't come back. The words crashed into me like a fist, slicing through the warm July air with a finality that didn't belong to a birthday celebration. I stood on the porch barefoot, my half-eaten slice of chocolate cake still in my hand, the flickering candles behind me still melting into the frosting of a forgotten birthday wish. My backpack lay on the front lawn, flung there with the kind of rage only a parent could summon when betrayal and disappointment take the wheel. And behind my father, arms crossed, face full of triumph, stood my little sister, Lily. I turned 18 that day, and it was the day everything fell apart. The first time I realized Lily was different from me, we were 5 and 7. She painted a stick figure family in finger paint, Mom, Dad, me, and her. Except I was scribbled in black. When Mom asked why, Lily said, "Because Caleb's always sad." Everyone laughed. But she wasn't wrong. Even back then, I felt older than I was. Like life had handed me a quiet heaviness no one else could see. I wasn't unhappy, just aware. I noticed things. I took responsibility for them. Lily, on the other hand, floated. She was laughter and crayons and fairy wings. She made the world notice her. People leaned in when she spoke. Strangers adored her. Teachers bragged about her talent. My parents called her the Golden One. I didn't mind. Not at first. I was proud of her. I protected her. I held her hand when she got nervous in crowds. I defended her when other kids picked on her drawings or called her weird. I even took the fall once when she knocked over Mom's favorite vase. It just seemed like what an older brother was supposed to do. But slowly, the roles hardened into something else. She was the shining star. I was the shadow behind it. Mom was the glue. She saw us both, really saw us. She noticed the drawings Lily left scattered across the kitchen table and praised them. But she also noticed the way I always did my homework without being asked. She kissed the top of my head when I packed my lunch and whispered, "Thank you for looking after us." When she died, everything fell apart. It was a Friday evening 3 years ago. Rain hammered the windows. The phone rang once, then again. Dad answered, and all the air went out of the house. He dropped to his knees, the receiver still clutched in his hand. Lily ran in from the living room and screamed when she saw his face. The funeral was a blur. Everyone in black. Lilies everywhere, ironic, because Lily hated the smell. I remember holding her hand the whole time. She didn't cry. Neither did I. Dad did. Once. Right at the end, as they lowered the casket into the ground. He didn't sob, he just made a sound, low and broken, like something inside him shattered beyond repair. From that day forward, he was different. Colder. Quieter, like he put up a wall between himself and the world. But not for Lily. She became his center. His only source of light. He clung to her art, praised her every sketch, filled the house with her drawings like talismans to keep grief away. And me? I became invisible. First, I thought it was just grief, that he'd come back eventually. But years passed. He never asked how I was doing in school. Never noticed when I stayed up all night studying or skipped lunch to save money. He didn't even show up to my high school graduation. When I told him, his only response was, "Oh, right, that was today." Lily cried when he said that, more for him than me. But even her tears didn't change anything. And yet, through it all, I never stopped being the responsible one. I cooked, cleaned, covered for Dad when bills slipped his mind, stayed home when Lily wanted rides to art shows or late-night supply runs. I picked up the slack because someone had to. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd notice someday. Maybe on my birthday. It was supposed to mean freedom. A rite of passage. A moment when everything changed. It did change. Just not in the way I ever imagined. It wasn't the worst day of my life. But it was the day I stopped believing family meant forever. I always knew Lily could lie. She was good at it, too good, really. But until that day, her lies had been harmless. The kind of stories kids make up to escape consequences. Little things, "I didn't take the last cookie." Or Caleb said I could borrow his earbuds. That sort of thing. But this one was different. This one cut bone deep. It started the day before my birthday. I had just come home from my shift at the diner, smelling like grease, feet aching, uniform stained with coffee. I tossed my bag onto the couch, too tired to even think straight, and was heading to the kitchen for a drink when I heard the crying. Lily. In the living room, loud enough to rattle the walls. Dad was already there, crouched in front of her, rubbing her back in slow circles. "And then he ripped the pages out, Dad," she was saying between hiccuping sobs. "He said my drawings were trash, that I should stop embarrassing myself." I froze in the hallway. "What the hell is she talking about?" I called out. Lily's head snapped up. Her eyes were red, but her cheeks were dry. The sobs stopped almost instantly. "You!" she shrieked, pointing at me like I was a criminal on trial. "Why are you pretending you didn't do it?" Dad turned. His eyes were unreadable. "I didn't touch your sketchbook," I said. "I've been at work all day. Ask Joe. He'll tell you I didn't leave early." "You came into my room this morning before you left," Lily said, her voice trembling. "You were mad. You said I was spoiled. You said Mom would have been ashamed of me." Her words hit like a hammer. I took a step back. "I never said that," I whispered. "I would never say that." But Dad's silence was louder than anything. He stood slowly, his jaw clenched, his gaze sharp. "She's crying," he said, voice low. "She's hurt, and you're standing there acting like you're the victim." I felt something snap in me. "Because I am the victim here," I said. "I didn't do this, Dad. Lily's lying. Can't you see that?" Lily let out a sob so forced it almost sounded fake. But Dad didn't even look at her. "I've had enough," he said, turning away. "You've always been jealous of her. You think I don't notice how bitter you are." I stared at him, stunned. Jealous? Jealous of what? Of being invisible? Of being forgotten? Of having to grow up faster than anyone should just to keep a broken household afloat? Lily sat quietly now, head bowed. But I caught the flicker of something in her eyes. Satisfaction. It was like watching a magician take a bow after the final trick, knowing she'd fooled the whole crowd. I spent that night in silence, locked in my room, staring at the ceiling. I knew what was coming. I felt it. The crack in our family had split wide open, and I was the one falling through. The next day, I tried to pretend it was just a rough patch, that things could still be salvaged. I made breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, Dad's favorite. I even left a plate at Lily's door, hoping some small act of peace might fix what words couldn't. No one came to the table. At noon, Dad walked in from the garage, glanced at the food, then straight at me. "Why are you still here?" he asked. I blinked. "What do you mean?" "You're 18 now," he said flatly. "You've been nothing but a problem in this house. You think you can lie to my face and disrespect your sister in my home." I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "I told you she lied, Dad. She's always been good at it. You just never cared to see it." "Enough," he snapped. "Pack your things." My throat went dry. "You're kicking me out? You're an adult. Go be one." I wanted to scream. To throw something. To demand that he look at me, really look, and remember the son he used to know. But all I could do was nod. Because I saw the truth in his eyes. He had made his choice. And it wasn't me. Lily didn't come out to watch me leave. But when I stepped onto the porch with my backpack, I saw the curtain shift upstairs. She was watching. She wanted to see this. And she smiled. Just a little. Just enough. I walked for hours. Past the edge of our neighborhood. Past the gas station where I used to buy candy as a kid. Past the park where Lily once skinned her knee and made me carry her home on my back. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. It was my birthday at my 18th. I should have been celebrating, maybe surrounded by friends or sharing cake at the kitchen table. Instead, I had a backpack with 2 shirts, an old laptop, my phone at 3% battery, and the dull ache of betrayal throbbing behind my ribs like a second heartbeat. It wasn't the fact that I'd been kicked out that hurt the most. It was who kicked me out. And why? Dad didn't even ask for my side. He just assumed. Trusted the tears in Lily's eyes more than the years I'd spent trying to be good. To be enough. To hold our family together after it fell apart. And I had tried. God, had I tried. I'd taken care of the bills when he forgot. I'd made sure Lily got to her art classes on time. That there was food in the fridge. That someone was holding up the crumbling foundation of our home while he stared out the window like a ghost. But none of it mattered. One lie. One stupid, selfish lie from my sister. And the truth of who I was evaporated in an instant. I ended up at Riverside Park. It was nearly empty, just a few joggers and a kid flying a neon green kite. I found a bench near the lake, the same one Mom used to bring us to when we were little. "Make a wish," she used to say, tossing pennies into the water. "Even if it doesn't come true, It gives your heart something to aim for. I pulled out my wallet.no cash. Just an old photo. Me and Mom. At the fair. I was maybe 9. We were laughing, holding cotton candy like trophies. Her arm around my shoulder. My smile crooked and shy. She would have known the truth. She would have believed me. I stayed at the park until the sun started to dip behind the trees. No calls, no texts. My phone was dead anyway. Not that it mattered. Not a single person remembered it was my birthday. Not even Lily. Especially not Lily. I found a bus stop with a wide awning and huddled there as night fell. It was summer, but the breeze still bit through my hoodie. A few passersby gave me strange looks, but no one stopped. I wrapped my arms around my knees and stared into the dark. Teen. Happy birthday to me. I must have drifted off at some point, because the next thing I knew, a flashlight was shining in my face. Hey kid, a gruff voice said. You all right? It was a police officer. Mid-40s. Kind eyes. I blinked at him, disoriented. Just resting, I muttered. He looked at the backpack, the hunched shoulders, the empty street behind me. Something shifted in his expression. You got a place to go? I shook my head. He crouched beside me. Family? I opened my mouth, then closed it. I had one, I said quietly. I don't anymore. They took me to a youth shelter on the other side of town. It wasn't fancy, just a faded blue house with a sign out front, and a woman named Miriam who looked like she'd seen everything and still chose to care anyway. She didn't ask too many questions. Just gave me a hot meal, a blanket, and a cot in a room with 3 other boys who barely looked up when I walked in. But I remember lying in that bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, and feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Not because I was safe, but because, for the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend I was okay. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of cinnamon rolls. Miriam sat across from me in the kitchen, sipping coffee, a notebook open in front of her. Happy belated birthday, she said, sliding a paper plate toward me. There was one roll. Still warm. A single candle stuck in the top. No song. No big gesture. But my throat still closed up as I lit the candle with her lighter and made a wish I didn't dare speak aloud. She waited until I'd eaten half before asking gently, "Want to talk about it?" So I did. Everything. The lie. The cake. The look in my father's eyes. How quickly everything I thought was true about my family had unraveled. She didn't interrupt. Didn't offer quick fixes or empty platitudes. She just listened. And when I finished, she looked at me like I mattered. Sometimes, she said, people choose to believe the lie because it fits the version of the world they're afraid to let go of. Doesn't make it right, but it helps explain the hurt. I nodded slowly, the words settling into me like a bomb. Your sister's lie says a lot about her, she continued. But your father's reaction? That's about him, not you. I spent the rest of that week sleeping, eating, and slowly stitching myself back together. I didn't text Dad. I didn't call Lily. I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure I ever would be. But I promised myself something that day. I wouldn't let their version of me become the only version that lived. I was more than the lie. More than the silence. More than the birthday no one remembered. The shelter was quieter than I expected. No shouting. No drama. Just the low hum of a space trying to hold too many broken people together with chipped paint and donated blankets. It was strange how something so simple could feel like safety. Miriam became my lifeline. She had a way of seeing you without making you feel exposed. She didn't try to fix me. She just gave me space to feel whatever needed to be felt. That first week, I barely spoke. I slept 12 hours a day, ate in silence, and watched the world through the narrow window above my cot like it was something happening to someone else. There was a boy in the bed next to mine named Dev. He looked about 16 and never made eye contact. Always drawing. Not pretty things, harsh, jagged sketches in black ink. Cities on fire. People screaming. He saw me staring once and said, without looking up, "Don't worry, I don't draw real life." I nodded. Me neither. We never talked again. But I understood him. By the end of the second week, Miriam sat me down with a list of part-time jobs posted by local businesses. Doesn't have to be perfect, she said. Just something to get you started. There was a dishwasher job at a local cafe a few blocks away. I circled it. Experience? She asked. Yeah, I said. I've been washing dishes for years, just not for money. She smiled, and for the first time in a while I smiled back. I got the job. 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. It didn't pay much, but it was honest work. And for the first time, I felt like I was building something that no one could take away from me. The owner, Mr. Harvey, was a gruff old guy with thick glasses and a radio that only played jazz. He didn't ask questions. Just showed me the sink, handed me gloves, and said, "Try not to drown." That was all I needed. The days started to blend into each other. Wake up, work, study in the shelter's common room, sleep, repeat. It was a routine, and routine felt like control. I used the computers at the shelter to apply for community college classes. Intro Psych. Creative writing. I wasn't sure what I wanted to be, but learning felt like a way to reclaim the parts of myself that had been buried under grief and anger. Every week, Miriam checked in. Every time, she said the same thing. "Still standing?" I'd nod, and she'd smile. One evening, maybe 6 weeks after I arrived, she handed me a sealed envelope. No return address. Just my name. My hands trembled before I even opened it. Inside was a birthday card. Plain. Cheap. From a gas station rack, probably. But the handwriting, I recognized it. Dad. "Caleb, I don't know where to start. That I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know something. I read your mother's journal. That I found it tucked in the drawer of the desk after you left. I don't know how I missed it. She saw you. And now, I finally do too. I failed you. And not just that day. For a long time, I believed the worst because it was easier than facing my own guilt. You didn't deserve that. Lily confessed everything. She's in therapy now. I started going too. If you're willing, I'd like to talk. Not as a father who expects anything, but as a man who's finally trying to be better. I'm sorry. Always, Dad." I sat there staring at the words long after I'd finished reading them. It didn't change what happened. It didn't undo the hurt, but it cracked something open inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but possibility. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the back of my notebook. Not to forget, but to remember. To hold on to the fact that even people who break you can choose to rebuild piece by piece. It was the first time I let myself believe there might still be a future where I wasn't defined by that night. Later that evening, Miriam saw me sitting outside, the letter in my hand. "Good news?" she asked. I looked up at the sky, where the first stars were starting to peek through the clouds. "I think it's the first time he's called me Caleb in a long time." She sat beside me, her presence quiet and grounding. "You know," she said after a moment, "you don't have to go back to be whole again." "I know," I said. "But maybe someday," she added gently, "you'll go back just to show them how whole you already are." That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. Not because everything was fixed, but because, for the first time, I wasn't carrying it alone. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when I found it. I'd come back to the shelter after work, fingers raw from scrubbing pots, brain numb from trying to understand a psychology lecture on trauma bonding. I dumped my backpack on my cot, pulled out my notebook to take some half-hearted notes, and it slipped out. A worn, leather-bound journal. Brown cover. Gold edges. The clasp half broken from years of use. It hit the floor with a soft thud. I stared at it, confused. This wasn't mine. Then I saw her handwriting, familiar, careful loops across the top page. "If I die tomorrow, let them remember I loved them deeply, even in my silence." My breath caught. "Mom, I don't remember packing it. Maybe I'd grabbed it in a haze that day, throwing things into my bag as my world collapsed. Maybe it had been there all along and I just never noticed, buried under clothes and bills and despair." But as I sat on the edge of my cot, turning the pages, it felt like she was there again. Her voice in my hands. Her heart spilled across the lines. Each page was dated. Some went back years. Long before her accident, she'd written about everything. Raising us, her grief, her worries about Dad, about me, about Lily. Some entries were just memories. Caleb refused to leave the shelter during the thunderstorm tonight. He said Lily was scared and someone had to protect her. He's only 10. Others were gut punches. Daniel snapped again today, said I was coddling the kids. He doesn't see how much Caleb takes on, how much he holds. Lily's drawing a lot more lately. She's good, but I'm worried she's learning that crying gets her what she wants. Caleb sees it too. He never says anything, but I can tell. I'm scared that if I die before they're grown, Caleb will have to be the adult too soon. He's already halfway there. I had to stop reading. The tears came so suddenly they startled me, hot, furious, releasing years of buried ache. She knew. She'd always known. And not just about Lily's manipulation or Dad's withdrawal, but about me. My quiet pain.my sacrifices. The invisible weight I carried for a family that barely noticed I was bending under it. She had seen it all. And now, so would I. Over the next few days, I read the journal in pieces. It became my lifeline. When I was overwhelmed, I'd crack it open and hear her voice again. Her hopes, her fears, her love, woven through every page like a thread stitching me back together. There were letters to each of us near the end. Unsent. Probably never meant to be seen. But I saw mine. It was dated 2 months before she died. Dear Caleb, I worry about you more than I'll ever let on. You carry this family like it's your duty, and I'm afraid you'll grow up thinking that's all you're worth. Being useful, being strong, being quiet. But you are so much more than what you give to others. You are kind. You are brave. You see the world with depth most people never will. And if one day your father forgets that, or your sister makes you feel invisible, I want you to remember this. I saw you. I see you still. You were never invisible to me. Love, Mom. When I finished reading, I held the journal against my chest and let myself cry. Not just for her, but for the boy she wrote about. The one who kept trying. The one who was finally allowed to stop pretending he wasn't hurting. Miriam found me sitting outside again later that night. She didn't ask what I was holding. She just sat with me, her warmth saying everything she didn't have to. After a while, I spoke. My mom knew who I was, even when no one else did. Miriam nodded. She still does. I think she was scared I'd disappear inside everyone else's needs. Were you? I took a long breath. I think I did, for a while. But I'm starting to come back. That night, I wrote something for the first time in months. Not an essay. Not a message. Just words. I am not the lie she told. I am not the silence he gave. I am the truth she left behind. Mom's journal changed everything. Not because it fixed the past, but because it reminded me who I'd been before it broke. And maybe, just maybe, who I could still become. Took me 8 months to go back. 8 months of working 2 jobs, finishing my first semester at community college, and learning how to live with the silence where my family used to be. I didn't plan the visit. I just woke up one Saturday, held Mom's journal in my hands, and knew it was time. Not to forgive. Not yet. But to say the things I'd buried. To look them in the eyes. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just grown bigger than the pain that once made it feel like a prison. The grass was too long. A dead porch light still hung crooked by the front steps. The wind chimes Mom used to love were missing, replaced by a silence so thick it nearly made me turn around. But I didn't. I rang the bell. Footsteps. Hesitant. Then the door opened, and there he was. Dad. Older. Grayer. Thinner. He looked like someone had wrung the life out of him and only left the shell. Caleb, he said, like the name physically hurt to say. Hey. We stared at each other for a long time. I wasn't sure what I expected. Anger? Tears? An apology? What I didn't expect was the way he stepped aside. Come in. The house was mostly the same. Same scuffed floors, same family photos in crooked frames. But something had shifted. Lily's artwork was gone from the walls. In their place, a few faded photos of all of us. One of Mom holding a newborn Lily. Another of me at 8 with a gap-toothed smile and jelly on my chin. The couch creaked as I sat down. Dad stayed standing. She's not here, he said, as if reading my mind. Lily, she's at a friend's. I nodded. This isn't about her. He looked surprised. It's not. No, it's about you. He sat down slowly, across from me, elbows on his knees like the weight of the conversation had already begun to crush him. I got your letter, I said. I meant every word. I know, I replied, but it doesn't change what happened. He flinched. I know that too. I read Mom's journal, I said, pulling it from my backpack and placing it gently on the table between us. She saw everything. She knew what Lily was doing, what you were ignoring. He stared at it like it might bite him. I didn't want to believe I failed her, he said after a long silence. So I turned my back on the one person who was still trying to hold this family together. Me. His eyes watered. I was grieving. I let Lily manipulate me because I needed someone to protect. And you didn't need me. You were strong. Quiet. I thought. You'd be fine. I wasn't, I said quietly. I was never fine. I just didn't think anyone would listen if I screamed. He closed his eyes. I am so sorry, Caleb. I believe you. He looked up, surprised. But believing you doesn't erase the damage, I continued. You didn't just kick me out. You let her lie ruin my name. You made me doubt everything I knew about love. About family. I know. I built something without you, I said. I got a job. Enrolled in school. Found people who saw me. Who believed in me. But I still needed to come here. Not for closure. Not for forgiveness. For the truth. He was crying now. Silent tears sliding down weathered cheeks. I don't expect anything from you, I added. But I needed you to see me. For once. Without the filter of grief or guilt or Lily's lies. Just me. He leaned forward, hands shaking, and picked up the journal. His fingers traced Mom's handwriting like it was holy. She always said you'd do great things, he whispered. Said you had her heart. I have her strength, I said. And I'm finally learning how to use it. We sat in silence for a long time. Not uncomfortable. Not angry. Just quiet. The kind of silence that comes after a storm, when the air is clear and heavy with things that still matter. When I stood to leave, he didn't try to stop me. But he followed me to the door and said something I hadn't heard in years. I love you, Caleb. I turned. I know. Then I walked away. Not angry. Not broken. Just me. Whole, healing. Seen. 2 weeks passed after that visit. I wasn't sure what I expected in the aftermath. Maybe that my father would call or maybe that he wouldn't. Both possibilities felt equally loaded. But what I didn't expect was a letter. Mailed.handwritten.no return address. But I knew the handwriting. Lily. I stared at it for a while before opening it. My fingers hesitated at the seal, my heart drumming like it was warning me not to let her back in. But I opened it anyway. Caleb, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know that now. And I'm not writing to ask for it. I lied because I was scared. You've always been everything I wasn't. Responsible. Strong. Loved by Mom in a way I didn't understand. And when she died, I felt like you became her favorite memory. I wanted Dad to see me, to need me, and I hated how he only ever looked at you when something needed fixing. So I made you the villain. I thought it would make him love me more. I thought it would give me space to finally be enough. But all it did was prove I wasn't. The truth is, I was jealous of how quietly you carried everything. And ashamed that I couldn't do the same. I'm in therapy now. I go every week. I'm trying to understand the pieces of myself I never looked at before. I don't expect you to want a relationship with me, but I want you to know, I'm sorry. Not just for the lie, but for never telling the truth sooner. You deserved better from all of us. I hope someday I can deserve a second chance. Love, Lily. I read the letter twice, then a third time. It didn't make the pain go away. Didn't erase the memory of her smile the day I walked off that porch. But something about her words, the rawness, the vulnerability, felt real. For once, she wasn't hiding behind tears or performance. She was just human. Like me. I didn't write back. Not at first. But a few nights later, while sitting in the common room at the shelter, I pulled out a blank page. I didn't plan what I'd say. I just started writing. Lily, I appreciate your letter. I'm glad you're getting help. I mean that. What you did hurt. Deeply. But I'm also learning that people do hurtful things when they're trying to survive pain they don't understand. That doesn't excuse it. But it explains it. And for the first time, I think you're trying to understand it, too. I don't know what our relationship looks like moving forward. I'm not ready to be your brother again in the way I once was. But I'm open to seeing who you're becoming. That's all I can give right now. Caleb. I mailed it the next day. No expectation. No timeline. Just a seed. Let her decide if she wanted to grow something from it. A week later, another letter came. From Dad. Caleb. Thank you. For coming back. For saying what needed to be said. I know I don't deserve a place in your life right now, but I'm working on myself. I'm seeing someone. Talking about the grief I locked away. I wish I'd had the courage to do that when your mom was still alive. Every morning now, I read a page of her journal. It's like hearing her again. And every time I do, I think of what she said about you, that you were always trying to keep the rest of us from drowning. I let you drown instead. I'm sorry. If you ever want to have dinner just to talk, no pressure, I'd like that. I miss you. Love, Dad. I folded the letter slowly, emotions rising like a tide. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't moved, but because something inside me had shifted. I was no longer the boy begging to be seen. I was a man choosing who got to know him. That weekend, I agreed to meet for coffee. Neutral ground. Public place. Just me and Dad. We sat by the window of a small cafe downtown. I sipped tea. He drank black coffee, no sugar, like always. We didn't talk about the past, not at first. Just books. College. How I was thinking about studying social work. How he'd fixed up Mom's garden out back. And then, slowly, the conversation turned. He apologized again. Without excuses. Without asking for anything. And for the first time, I believed him. Not just his words, but the man behind them. When I left the cafe, I didn't promise to call soon. I didn't say we were good now. But I said this. I'm proud of the man you're becoming, even if it took you longer to get here. He nodded, eyes glassy. I'm proud of you too, he said. You've always been someone worth being proud of. That night, I lit a single candle. No cake and no party. Just the flicker of light, the cool breeze through the shelter window, and one wish whispered into the dark. That I never forget how far I've come. That I never let pain turn me into someone I'm not. That I always leave space for people to grow, even if I never let them close again. The invitation came on a Tuesday. I found it tucked inside my mailbox at the shelter, between a coupon book and my latest electric bill. The envelope was pale pink. No return address. Just my name in soft, looping cursive. Lily's handwriting. Inside was a small, printed card. You're invited. Reflections. An exhibition by Lily Monroe. Saturday at 6 p.m. The Eastwood Gallery. Featured piece. The Bench. I hope you'll come. I read the card 3 times. Then once more for the part that made my stomach twist. The bench. I knew which bench. Saturday came faster than expected. I almost didn't go. What if it was a trap? What if this was her way of flaunting her success, showing me how far she'd come without me? But another voice inside me, quieter and stronger, said, what if it's something else? So I went. The Eastwood Gallery was warm and clean, walls covered in framed canvases lit by soft gold spotlights. The crowd was small but well-dressed, murmuring about shadows and texture and composition. I almost turned around, until I saw it. Her name, Lily Monroe, etched in brass beside a tall white panel. She was standing there, alone. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup understated. She looked different. Not just older, calmer, softer around the edges. Like someone who had been through a storm and walked out the other side, soaked but alive. When she saw me, she didn't smile. Not right away. Her eyes welled up, and she stepped toward me, slowly. Like if she moved too fast, I'd disappear. You came, she whispered. I wasn't sure I would. I wasn't sure I deserved it if you did. We stood there for a moment, the noise of the gallery falling away. Then she pointed to the centerpiece of her exhibition. Come see. It was a large charcoal piece, easily 4 feet wide. Black and white, soft lines with heavy shading. It was me, sitting alone on a park bench beneath a vast night sky. My shoulders hunched, my hands folded, a backpack slouched at my feet. The moon glowed above, but it wasn't cold. It was gentle, like it was watching over me. But the thing that hit hardest? The look in my eyes. Not sadness, not anger, but resilience. It was the most honest portrait anyone had ever drawn of me. She didn't turn me into a villain or a martyr. She just told the truth. I started it the night you left, Lily said beside me. But I couldn't finish it until I started being honest with myself. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded. It's beautiful, I whispered. Painful, but beautiful. I wanted to honor the moment I saw you clearly, she said. The moment I realized what I'd done, and who you really were all along. I looked at her then. I was so angry, I said, for so long. I wanted to erase you. I know. I still don't fully trust you. I know that too. But I believe you're trying. She let out a breath that sounded like relief. I am. We walked together through the rest of her exhibit. Most of the pieces were raw and emotional, self-portraits through every phase of her unraveling and healing. Scribbled text weaved through the borders of the canvases, sometimes barely readable. I made him disappear so I could be seen. This isn't the face of someone who deserves applause. Some lies become habits. Some truths come with claws. By the end, I wasn't just proud of her talent. I was moved by her bravery. Because Lily wasn't showing off. She was showing up. As we reached the final wall, she turned to me again. I don't want to go back to how things were, she said. I just want us to find a new way forward, one step at a time. I hesitated, then held out my hand. Then let's take the first step. She took it, her fingers trembling against mine. We stood there beneath her name, surrounded by strangers who would never know the full story, who would never understand the weight behind every line on every canvas. But we knew, and maybe for the first time that was enough. That night, I went home to my small rented room above the bookstore. I lit a candle, not for my birthday, but for the version of myself I'd fought to protect. I sat by the window and looked out at the stars, just like the ones in Lily's drawing. And I whispered a promise, that I would never let lies define me again. I used to think home was a place. For walls, a roof, a front porch with a crooked welcome mat, and a kitchen where the smell of pancakes meant someone still cared. But home, real home, isn't made of bricks. It's made of truth. Of people who see you. Of the parts of yourself you refuse to abandon. Of healing that takes its time, but never stops trying. A year passed since that birthday. 12 months since the world cracked open and I stepped into the dark. And now, I still lived in my little room above the bookstore. I worked mornings at the cafe and evenings shelving books. In between, I took classes, psychology, literature, creative writing. I started journaling. Not for assignments, not for anyone else, just for me. It was my way of stitching the past into something I could carry without it bleeding. Dad and I met for coffee once a month. No pressure, no pretending. We didn't talk about the night I left anymore. That chapter had been read, underlined, and closed. Instead, we talked about where we were going. He had started volunteering at a grief support group. Said it helped him feel close to Mom in a way he'd buried for too long. Sometimes he brought photos from the garden. Mom's roses blooming again. He was softer now. Less angry. Like life had finally broken him open in a way that let the light in. Lily and I weren't best friends. But we were something better. Honest. We wrote letters. Checked in. Every so often, she sent a sketch, a self-portrait with tear stains in the corners, or an empty bench beneath a stormy sky. She never asked for forgiveness again. And maybe that's why I started to forgive her. Because she stopped needing it to move forward. On the anniversary of my 18th birthday, I returned to the park. The same bench. The same sky. Only this time, I didn't sit with my knees pulled to my chest or a dead phone in my pocket. I sat tall. I brought a single candle. No cake, no celebration. Just a quiet flame, flickering in the summer breeze. And I made a wish not to change the past, but to honor it. To thank the boy who never gave up, even when no one believed him. To thank the man he became. To remember that home is something you carry in your chest, even when you've been kicked out of the house. Before I left the park, I reached into my bag and pulled out Mom's journal. It was worn now, the pages soft from rereading. I turned to the back and added one final line beneath her last entry. I see me now too, Mom. Then I closed the cover and walked into the world I had built with my own hands. Epilogue. People ask me sometimes what it was like to be thrown out on your birthday, to be lied about, abandoned, forgotten. I tell them this, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And also the beginning of everything that saved me. Because that moment didn't break me. It revealed me. And what I found beneath the wreckage was someone worth rebuilding for.